Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. The moon hung low over the Silver Moon Kingdom, casting a pale light across the grand halls of the palace. Its glow bathed the marble columns and tapestries in a ghostly hue, as though the kingdom itself mourned the recent death of the crown prince. The court was in disarray. Whispers filled every corner, and suspicion crept into the hearts of nobles and commoners alike. What had been a prosperous kingdom now stood on the brink of chaos. Lion, a young knight of the royal guard, stood silently by a window in the dimly lit hallway, his face shadowed by the moonlight. His hand rested on the hilt of his sword, but his mind was far from the weapon at his side. He was lost in thought, recalling the final days of the prince, the moments that led up to the tragedy that now threatened the entire kingdom. He'd served the crown prince loyally, had watched over him with unwavering devotion. Yet the prince was gone, taken by a mysterious illness that no healer could cure. The nobles said it was fate, a cruel twist of destiny, but Lion knew better. He had overheard things, seen glimpses of the truth that others had missed. There were whispers in the palace, whispers of treachery, of poison. And now, with the prince gone, the kingdom teetered on the edge of civil war. The nobles were circling like vultures, each backing their chosen heir, ready to strike when the time was right. A noise behind him broke Lion's thoughts. He turned quickly, his hand instinctively tightening on his sword, but it was only Princess Alara, the younger sister of the late prince. Her presence alone sent a warmth through him, a feeling he tried to suppress but could not. Alara was regal, her long silver hair cascading over her shoulders, her deep blue eyes filled with sorrow, but also a fire that had not been extinguished by grief. "Lion," she whispered, her voice soft but filled with urgency. "Kyle, I need to speak with you." He nodded, stepping away from the window and closer to her. "Of course, your highness." "Not here? Follow me." Lion followed her through the dim corridors of the palace, his footsteps quiet on the stone floor. They moved in silence, past the grand throne room, past the hall where the royal council met, where no doubt the nobles were already plotting their next move. Allure led him to a small private chamber, far from the prying eyes and ears of the court. Once inside, she closed the door behind them and turned to face him, her eyes sharp, determined. "I know about the conspiracy," she said, her voice steady, though her hands trembled slightly. Lion felt his heart race. Alara stepped closer, her gaze locked onto his theory. "My brother, Set's death. It was not natural. I've been investigating on my own quietly ever since it happened. I did show proof, Lian. He was poisoned." A surge of anger and disbelief coursed through him. He had suspected foul play, but hearing it confirmed from Alara Tlaya's lips made it all the more real. "Kua," he asked, his voice barely more than a growl. "You would do this?" Alara hesitated, glancing toward the window as though afraid someone might overhear. "Duke Adrian," she finally whispered. "Hey, he wants the throne for his son." He had been gathering support among the other nobles, playing them against each other, but it was Erbian who orchestrated my brother's death. Lian Shrull, hand tightened on the hilt of his sword. He had always distrusted Duke Adrian, a man known for his cunning and ruthless ambition. But to hear that he was responsible for the prince's death, this was treason of the highest order. "We have to stop him," Lian said, his voice firm. Alara shook her head. "It's not that simple. Adrian has too many allies. If we expose him now, he'll deny everything, and we'll be the ones accused of treason. We need more proof, something undeniable." Lion's mind raced, trying to grasp the full scope of what she was saying. He had spent his life serving the royal family, believing in the sanctity of the kingdom. But now the very foundation of that kingdom was crumbling beneath the weight of betrayal. And yet, even as his thoughts darkened, he felt a flicker of something else, a fierce protective instinct for the woman standing before him. "I'll help you, Alara," he said softly, letting her name slip from his lips for the first time without a title. "Dear, whatever it takes, I'll help you." Her eyes softened at his words, and for a brief moment, the weight of their situation seemed to lift. But the moment passed quickly, and the reality of their predicament settled back over them. "We have to be careful," Alara said. "Adrian is watching every move we make. If he suspects we know the truth, he won't hesitate to strike first." Lincoln nodded. "Then we'll gather the proof we need quietly. I'll do whatever I can to protect you and the kingdom." For a moment, they stood in silence, the gravity of their situation hanging between them. Then with a quick glance at the door, Allure stepped closer to Lian, her voice barely above a whisper. "Day, I trust you, Lian, more than anyone else in this palace." Lian felt the warmth of her words wash over him, but he also felt the weight of the responsibility she had just placed on his shoulders. He had made an unspoken vow that night, a vow to protect not only the kingdom but also the woman he loved, no matter the cost. The days that followed were a blur of secrecy and tension. Lian moved through the palace like a shadow, watching, listening, always on edge. He learned quickly that the court was a dangerous place filled with hidden alliances and whispered conversation. The nobles were all playing their own games, each one vying for power in the wake of the prince and death. But Lian kept his focus on the task at hand. He and Allure worked together in secret, gathering information, piecing together the conspiracy that Duke Adrian had woven so carefully. It was a delicate operation, one that required patience and caution. Every move had to be calculated, every word chosen carefully. Lian had never been a man of politics. He was a soldier, a knight trained for battle, not intrigue. But for Allure's sake, he learned quickly, and as the days passed, he began to see just how deep the corruption in the kingdom went. It wasn't just Duke Adrian who sought the throne. Other nobles, too, had their own ambitions, their own plots and schemes. The entire court was a viper's nest, and one wrong step could mean death. One night, as Lian patrolled the palace grounds, he overheard a conversation that chilled him to the bone. Two of Duke Adrian and his men, unaware of his presence, spoke in hushed tones about the final steps of their plan. "It's almost time," one of them whispered. "Adrian will make his move soon. The princess won't be a problem for much longer." Lian's blood ran cold. They were planning to eliminate Allure. He had no time to lose. Lian felt a surge of panic. If Duke Adrian was planning to move against Allure, it meant the time for quiet investigation was over. He had to act now. Without a second thought, he turned and hurried toward Allure's chambers, his heart racing in his chest. The moonlight cast long shadows across the palace corridors, but Lian moved swiftly, unnoticed by the few guards who remained on duty at this late hour. When he reached Allure's chambers, he knocked softly but urgently on the door. After a moment, it creaked open and Allure appeared, her expression worried but not surprised to see him. She stepped aside, allowing him to enter. "Lian, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "They were gonna move against you," Lian said, his voice tight with urgency. "I overheard two of Adrian's men. They said you won. She'd be a problem for much longer." Alnata's face paled, but she quickly regained her composure. "Dario, then we have no time to waste. We need to gather what we have and make our move." Lian shook his head. "It's too dangerous. If you stay here, they'll strike before we have a chance to expose them. We need to get you somewhere safe." Allure's eyes flashed with defiance. "I want to reel and hide while Adrian takes the throne. This kingdom is my responsibility. My brother sends ... It can't be for nothing. I need to face him." Lian stepped closer, his hand resting lightly on her arm. "I understand. But if you die, Adrian wins. We need more time to gather evidence, to rally loyal nobles to your side. If we confront him now without a plan, it will only lead to your death, and the kingdom will fall into his hands." For a moment, they stood in silence, the weight of their decisions pressing heavily on both of them. Then slowly, Allure nodded. "Where are we, right? But where can I go that Adrian find me?" "I know a place," Lian said. "There's a gold state in the mountains, owned by a family that's been loyal to the crown for generations. It's secluded, and the roads are difficult to travel. If we leave now, we can be there before dawn." Allure hesitated, glancing around her chambers as if saying goodbye to her life here. "Stay, and what about you, Toynia?" she asked. "Toynia, what will you do?" "I'll stay here," Lian said firmly. "I'll continue gathering information, and when the time is right, I'll expose Adrian and bring him to justice. But I can't do that if I am worrying about your safety." Allure's gaze softened. "I hate leaving you here alone." "You were not leaving me," Im replied. "If you're free trusting me, and I swear to you I won," he let you down. She looked at him for a long moment, as if trying to memorize every detail of his face. Then with a resigned sigh, she nodded. "Steph, all right, let's go." The escape from the palace was swift and quiet. Lion led Alara through the hidden passages known only to the royal guard, avoiding the main corridors where Duke Adrian sensed men might be lurking. The air outside was cold and crisp, the stars twinkling in the clear night sky as they mounted horses and set off toward the mountain. The ride was long and grueling, the winding paths through the forests and rocky hills barely visible in the moonlight. But Lian pushed them forward, determined to reach the estate before any of Adrian's men could follow. Ella rode behind him, silent but focused, her determination clear in the way she held herself. By the time they reached the estate, dawn was breaking over the horizon, casting a soft glow over the mountain. The estate was small but well kept, its stone walls nestled into the hillside, surrounded by thick wood. A man and woman, both in their middle years, emerged from the house as they approached. Lian recognized them immediately, Edric and Mira, the caretakers of the estate and loyal subjects of the royal family. Lian Edric said, his voice warm but surprised. "What brings you here at this hour?" "There's no time to explain in detail," Noah Lion said, dismounting from his horse and helping Alara down. "We need your help. The princess is in danger, and she needs to stay here, hidden until it's safe." Edric's eyes widened as he realized who Alara was, but he quickly nodded. "Tria, of course, anything for the crown." Mira stepped forward, her expression filled with concern. "Start come inside, your highness. We'll take care of you." Alara gave a small, grateful smile as she followed Mira into the house. Lian stayed behind for a moment, speaking quietly with Edric. "I'll need you to keep this place secure," Lian said. "Light and no one can know," she said here, not even the other servant. "Have my word," Edric replied. "We'll protect her with our lives." Lian nodded, feeling a small sense of relief. Alara was safe for now. But his work was far from over. He mounted his horse once more, ready to head back to the palace. "You'll let me know when it's out?" Edric asked. "I will," Lian said. "But until then, keep her safe." With a final nod, Lian turned his horse and rode back toward the palace, the weight of his responsibilities heavy on his shoulders. He knew that time was running out. Adrian wouldn't wait long to make his move, and when he did, Lian had to be ready. As he rode, his mind raced with possibilities. The court was a dangerous place, filled with allies and enemies, and it was difficult to know whom to trust. But he had to find a way to expose Adrian's treachery before it was too late. If he failed, the kingdom would fall into the hands of a tyrant, and everything he and Alara had fought for would be lost. When Lian returned to the palace, it was still early, and the court years had not yet begun to stir. He moved through the halls like a ghost, slipping into his chambers and discarding his travel-worn cloak. His mind was already working, piecing together what little information he had gathered. He needed more proof, something undeniable that would turn the nobles against Brian. But Adrian was too clever, too cautious. He would have covered his tracks well. And yet, Lian knew that every man had a weakness, a flaw that could be exploited. He just had to find it. As he sat in the dim light of his chambers, the answer suddenly came to him. The poison, if he could find the source of the poison that had killed the prince, it would be the key to unraveling Adrian's entire conspiracy. But where would Adrian have obtained such a rare and deadly substance? There was only one place in the kingdom where poisons of that nature could be found, the apothecaries in the lower district of the capital. It was a dangerous place, filled with thieves and criminals, but if anyone knew about the poison, it would be one of them. Lian stood, his resolve hardening. He had no choice but to go there, to search the underworld for answers. It was a risk, but he had come too far to turn back now. As he left his chambers and made his way through the palace, Lian couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He glanced over his shoulder more than once, but the halls were empty. Still, the unease lingered like a shadow at the edge of his vision. He would have to be careful. Adrian had eyes everywhere, and any misstep could mean the end not just for him, but for Alara and the kingdom itself. Lian left the palace under the cover of darkness, slipping into the lower district unnoticed. The streets were narrow and winding, filled with the stench of refuse and the sounds of distant shouting. He kept his hood pulled low over his face as he made his way to the apothecary he had in mind, a small hidden shop known only to those who dealt in dangerous substances. When he reached the door, he knocked twice, then once more the signal for entrance. The door creaked open, revealing a hunched man with sharp, beady eyes. "Looking for something special? Are we?" the man asked, his voice a rasp. I need information. Lion said, stepping inside, about a poison. One that would kill a man slowly over time and make it look like a natural death. The apothecary's eyes gleamed with interest. The clerk laughed. Not many would know how to brew such a thing, but you read on luck. I do. Lian leaned in closer, his voice low and dangerous. Who did you sell it to? Lian leaned closer, his voice a low murmur as he pressed the apothecary. Fairy, who did you sell it to? The man hesitated, his eyes darting to the door as if expecting someone to burst in at any moment. Information isn't cheap. It could cost you dearly if the wrong people find out you were asking. Lian's patience thinned. A man died because of that poison. I need to know who's responsible, and I am willing to pay. The apothecary studied Lion for a moment, sizing him up. Finally, he relented. All right, but you didn't hear this from me. The last batch of that poison went to Duke Steed. He's been looking for something potent, something that could take out a man without leaving a trace. Lion felt a chill run down his spine. So it was true. Adrian was the puppet master behind the prince's death, and now he was on the hunt for anyone who might threaten his plan. Do you know how to get to him, how to confront him without alerting his guard? The apothecary nodded slowly. There's a delivery coming from the lower district to his estate tomorrow night. If you disguise yourself as one of the delivery men, you might slip in unnoticed. But be careful. His guards don't take kindly to strangers. Lian weighed his options. Disguising himself as a common laborer was a risk, but it was the best chance he had to gather more evidence against Adrian. He glanced around the dimly lit shop, taking in the shelves filled with various potions and vials. Harriet, what about a disguise? Pierre asked. The apothecary gestured to a rack of clothes hanging in the corner. I can help you with that, but be warned, they might not fit as snugly as you were used to. With a nod, Lion moved toward the rack, picking out a coarse tunic and trousers that would help him blend in with the common folk. He quickly changed, grateful for the fabric, rough texture that contrasted sharply with the fine clothes he usually wore. Once disguised, Lion made his way back to the palace, his heart pounding with anticipation. Tomorrow night would be the turning point, the moment he would confront Duke Adrian and gather the evidence needed to expose him. As he navigated the dark streets, he felt the weight of the world on his shoulder. The kingdom depended on him, on his courage, and on his ability to protect Alara. Back at the palace, he snuck through the corridors, careful to avoid any prying eye. As he reached his chambers, he prepared for the next day. It's a dangerous venture, laying out his plan with meticulous care. He would slip into the estate, gather evidence, and return to Alara. Simple enough if everything went according to plan. The next evening, Lion donned his disguise once more and made his way to the delivery point. The streets buzzed with the sounds of vendors and townsfolk, but Lion kept his focus sharp. He approached a small gathering of laborers who were preparing a cart loaded with various goods. Got room for one more? He asked, adopting a casual tone that hid his anxiety. One of the laborers, a burly man with a scruffy beard, looked him up and down. See the pans you can lift, can't you? Sure can, Lion replied, stepping closer to the cart to prove his strength. He lifted a crate, effortlessly earning nods of approval from the men. All right, you can ride with us, just don't slow us down. Beery the man grunted, motioning for Lion to climb onto the cart. As they made their way through the streets, Lion's heart raced with both excitement and fear. He listened carefully to the chatter of the other men, picking up tidbits of information about the kingdom, the court, and the rumors swirling around Duke Adrien, but all he could focus on was the task ahead. After a long ride, they arrived at Duke Adrian's estate, a sprawling mansion surrounded by high walls and patrolled by guards. Lian felt a knot form in his stomach as he saw the heavy wooden gates, knowing that once he entered, he would have to tread carefully. The laborers unloaded the cart and Lion blended in, helping with the tasks as they entered the estate. Once inside, he quickly surveyed his surroundings. The grandeur of the estate was overwhelming. Ornate chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and the walls were adorned with portraits of past rulers. But Lion had no time to admire the decor. He needed to find evidence, and fast. Lion slipped away from the group, moving silently through the halls, keenly aware of the guards stationed at every turn. He tried to recall the layout he had seen during his time serving the royal family, looking for a way to reach the Duke's side private quarters without drawing attention. After a few tense moments, he found a narrow staircase that led up to the second floor. He ascended cautiously, his heart racing as he approached the doors to the Duke's side private study. He knew that this would be his best chance to find any incriminating evidence. Lian gently pushed the door open, holding his breath as it creaked. Inside the study was dimly lit, filled with the scent of aged paper and leather. Bookshelves lined the walls, and a large desk sat in the center cluttered with papers and documents. Lion stepped inside, closing the door quietly behind him. He began rifling through the papers on the desk, searching for anything that would link Adrian to the poison. Most of the documents were mundane reports on agricultural yields, correspondence with other nobles, but then he stumbled upon a letter with the Duke's seal. As he read, his blood ran cold. The letter detailed the purchase of rare poisons, including the very one used to kill the prince. Leontary's heart raced as he realized the weight of what he had found. This was it, the evidence he needed. Just as he was about to pocket the letter, Lion heard footsteps approaching. Panic surged through him as he quickly stuffed the letter back onto the desk and rushed to the nearest hiding spot, a small alcove beside the bookshelf. He pressed himself against the wall, holding his breath as the door swung open. Duke Adrian entered, flanked by two guards. Lion's pulse quickened as he listened to their conversation. The Duke's voice dripped with arrogance as he spoke. "Princess is a fool to think she can oppose me once I take the throne. This kingdom will know true power." "But my lord, what if she discovers the truth about the poison?" asserted one of the guards. Adrian chuckled darkly. "She won T-Lib to find out. I have eyes everywhere. If she poses a threat, she'll be dealt with swiftly. No one will stand in my way." Lion clenched his fists, anger boiling within him. This man was a monster, willing to kill his own for the sake of power. He had to act, but how he couldn't, to reveal himself with the guards present. Adrian continued speaking, oblivious to Lion's presence. "I will stage an accident, make it look like she fled in a fit of madness. The nobles will fall in line once they see the chaos she leaves behind." As Lion listened, the pieces began to fall into place. If he could expose Adrian's signed plans, not just to the princess, but to the entire court, it would not only save Allure, but also ensure that the Duke would never seize the throne. But first, he needed to escape this room and get back to Allure with the letter. Lion waited, holding his breath until the guards turned to leave, following Adrian out of the study. As soon as the door closed, he slipped out of his hiding spot and quickly grabbed the letter from the desk. He felt a rush of exhilaration. This was his chance to save the kingdom. He moved swiftly, retracing his steps back to the main hallway, hoping to avoid the guard. But as he neared the exit, he spotted a figure approaching one of Adrian's men. Heart pounding, Lion ducked behind a nearby column, pressing himself against the cool stone. The man stopped, glancing around, suspicion etched on his face. Lion held his breath, praying he wouldn't be discovered. He could hear the man's footsteps as he moved closer, searching for the slightest sign of movement. Just as Lian felt the tension reach its peak, the man turned and walked away, heading in the opposite direction. With a silent sigh of relief, Lion took the opportunity to slip out the back entrance, the moonlight guiding his escape as he made his way back through the estate's grounds. Each step felt lighter, fueled by the adrenaline of his narrow escape and the weight of the letter in his pocket. When he finally reached the cart and the laborers, he climbed aboard without a word, his heart racing with the thrill of his successful mission. The men chattered amongst themselves, unaware of the chaos that had just unfolded within the Duke's cell walls. Lion kept his head down, focused on the road ahead. As they made their way back to the lower district, he couldn't help but think of Allure. She had to know the truth, but he also needed to ensure that she would be safe. Once they reached their destination, he would find a way to bring her the evidence while keeping her out of harm and sway. After what felt like an eternity, they finally arrived back at the lower district. Lion dismounted the cart and quickly made his way to Allure's hidden estate, heart pounding in his chest. He couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. He needed to expose Adrian before it was too late. When he reached the estate, he found Edric standing outside, his expression a mixture of relief and concern. "You're back," he said, his voice low. "I was beginning to worry." "I have something," Lian said, pulling the letter from his pocket. "Alvet's proof of Adrian's involvement in the prince. Idric's eyes widened as he took the letter from Lion Saint dear. We need to show this to the princess immediately. Lion nodded, urgency in his voice. In the main room, Edric replied, gesturing for Lion to follow. They hurried inside, and Lion's heart raced as he entered the room, where Elara sat by the fire, her expression anxious. Lian, she exclaimed, rising to her feet. I was starting to worry. What happened? I found evidence, he said, holding out the letter. Andrian is behind everything. He poisoned the prince and plans to eliminate you next. Elara's eyes widened as she took the letter, reading the words written on the parchment. Tara, this is incredible. We can expose him, but we have to act quickly. Adrian is dangerous, and he has eyes everywhere. If he suspects we know, he will come for you. Elara's jaw set in determination. Hello, then we need to rally the noble. We can let him take the throne. This kingdom deserves better. Lian nodded, admiration swelling in his chest. Elara was brave, but he also felt the weight of their situation. We need to plan carefully. If we make a single mistake, it could cost us everything. We'll do it together, Elara said, firmly, her eyes meeting his with unwavering conviction. All I want to let him take my brother's soul legacy from me. As they strategized, Lion felt a flicker of hope. They had a chance, however slim, to turn the tide. But as he looked into Elara's eyes, he also felt the burden of the oath he had taken. He would protect her, no matter the cost. With their plan set, they prepared to face the storm that was coming. Lion knew they were about to enter the most dangerous chapter of their life. But for the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of purpose, a belief that they could fight back against the darkness that threatened to engulf their kingdom. Together they would face Duke Ajurdikian, and together they would reclaim their future.